Alright, the day has finally come. Skull Island is dropped on Netflix, and I wanted to do a quick discussion video about it. But before I get into it, let me start off by saying, go ahead and watch the show. It's not utter garbage, so you won't be wasting your time by watching it. This supports the Monsterverse, this supports Netflix taking risks on animation, so go ahead and just watch it. The video will be here when you get back. It's about 8 episodes long, and each episode runs no longer than 25 minutes, so you won't be losing a lot of time by watching it. Just remember to come back and watch the video when you're done watching the actual show. I think it's more fun when you have your own formed opinion and we can have a conversation in the comments below. If you've already seen the show, leave your comment. Alright, so by now you've seen the show, and you could probably tell me, and just as much as I'm going to say it, that there are pros and cons out the wazoo with this thing. So I want to tackle the negatives first, and then we'll go into the positives that I liked about the show. Now keep in mind, this is not like, I'm not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, I'm just a fan, this is just what I observed, these are my opinions. The first thing I think we should discuss is the thing that we were all kind of worried about when we saw that initial story trailer. The writing for the kids is very hard to stomach at a lot of times in the series. However, it does seem to be relegated to just the children. The adults have, like, interesting and meaningful conversations, but I'll get more to that in a second. It's just kind of strange that we're meant to believe that these kids are from the 90s and their banter is so quippy and quick, it feels more modern. These don't feel like kids from the 90s, these feel like kids from yesterday. While there are a lot of excellent scenes of animation, there are just as many really hard to watch scenes of animation. Sometimes shadows don't line up. There are some scenes that become jarring because the CG and the traditional animation just don't function very well together. Even if you catch it subconsciously, you recognize that something's a little off here, and I don't know what it is. I know it took me a couple of rewinds to catch exactly what it was I found to be wrong with some scenes. It's strange that a show with 8 episodes has poor time management. I feel like episodes 1, 6, 7, and 8 are the ones you need to watch, but 2 through 5, you really didn't need them. Like, it felt like the show was trying to tug us along with a mystery box that we promise is going to get open. Yeah, we get our answers for the most part. It shouldn't be your filler. It just felt silly to just... It was frustrating. I also really didn't like the character designs for the inhabitants of Skull Island. Like, this is supposed to be this wondrous place of new and interesting creatures, so why is it the question seems to be, well, what if a crab was big? Well, what if an English bulldog was big? Well, what if an alligator was big? Like, this is not what I came to Skull Island for. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. It just felt, unfortunately, kind of lazy and uninspired. This is Derek post-recording, Derek from the future. I just want to point out real quick that there were monster designs that I did actually enjoy, but I forgot to mention it in the initial recording. I really liked the tree gremlins that we saw and the rock monsters. Those things were awesome. I was hoping for more designs and creatures like that were just kind of, what is that? I want to know more about that. But we don't get a lot of them. And I wish we did. Alright, so with all the negatives out of the way, I wanted to also focus on the positives because the show does actually get a lot right. As I started off in the beginning, the adult characters feel a lot less unhinged and feel like more of a interesting focal point than the kids who we seem to be focusing on. I don't know if that was intentional, like if if this was supposed to be a family show that catered to both children and adults alike. And you know, they don't pay me enough to have an answer for that one, so I'm kind of just guessing here. But it felt like the adults were more interesting to watch. The show shines because of 2 main characters, Kong and Dog. Both these characters are very expressive, and when they're on screen, they are stealing each shot they're in. I don't care about what's going on with anything else. Those characters are why I'm watching the show. As I mentioned in the negatives, I feel like Dog is kind of a strange addition to Skull Island, but his performances, his emotions, his nuances make him way more fun to watch than most of the other creatures on screen. I loved the voice cast. I felt like everyone did their part, even if their part was kind of hard to work with. It felt like they gave it their all. Nobody was showing up for the paycheck. Nobody felt out of place. Everyone felt like the way they were meant to feel like. I mentioned that there are scenes that are hard to watch, but there are some scenes that just, I love them. I can't help but think of every time Kong gets in a scrap. There's also another sequence where Annie is kind of running towards the tree, and I don't know why this scene it's so simple, but it does catch the eye in a very pleasing way. I think it's just like the physics of her hair making a hell of a lot of sense, and it makes it more enjoyable when it's something simple. Annie and Irene's stories are very well done, and I feel like there is an actual emotional weight when Irene confesses to Annie that she buried her. Betty Gilpin and Mae Whitman both do an amazing performance during this scene, enough to where it's a huge positive, in my opinion, of the series. Again, where the show shines is definitely the Kong-centric episodes. 7 and 8 are not only fantastic from a visual standpoint, but also a narrative one. You don't need a hell of a lot going on in terms of dialogue or exposition dumping. You just need simplicity and basically some great kaiju fight action, and these episodes deliver on that in a way that is exciting and fun. Why wasn't the entire series like this? My guess is probably because they wanted to build up expectation and promise towards a grand finale, which we kinda get. I was glad to see the Iwi. I was very worried we weren't going to see a lot of them, but it seems like we're going to maybe in the next season. Fingers crossed. It is kind of strange that they break their silence that they're known for having in like when I think of Kong Skull Island and I think of the Iwi, I think of John C. Reilly having those awkward one-sided conversations with these people, and they're actually like openly talking to Charlie at the end of the 8th episode. Again, kind of confused, but I am happy that they're here. Nonetheless, I feel like they are an underutilized part of the MonsterVerse, so I'm hoping to see more of them. Finally, I was really worried that this show was going to pull a lot of punches when it came to our main cast. And I was glad to see that in the first episode, both bad guys and good guys alike were put in danger and straight up killed off. That was ballsy, and I think really establishes stakes for our characters. So when we have a character like Mike poisoned, it's very likely that he could die, because we know that the show isn't afraid to kill off characters that are named. My final thoughts are this: the show is definitely flawed, but I don't think it's necessarily the show's fault. I think this has to do with Netflix being unsure what to do with the Kong property. This feels very low budget for Netflix. When I think of Netflix animation, I think of Love, Death, and Robots, I think of Arcane, Godzilla Singular Point come to mind. What I'm trying to say is these shows have an amazing budget, and it definitely reflects in every frame, whereas this show, it feels very low budget and quite the opposite. Like, it doesn't really shine as well as you might expect from something with Netflix's animation pedigree. I think there are a lot of interesting stories that can be told on Skull Island that not only tell the story of Kong, but the entire MonsterVerse. But we don't really get that. We get like little flakes here and there. And when the show does it right, it does it so right. The kaiju action, the actual, like, the human interactions can be good, but more often than not, they feel like a slog to get through. This is a real 50-50. All right, one last interruption before we end this. I just want to say that I also think that the show does a really good job in the animation department. The human designs and some of the monster designs are fantastic, and overall, it's just a really good time to watch. You can put it on in the background and not miss too much, and every few episodes you can turn around and be like, oh wait, no, this is actually kind of important. So it's good background noise, but also there's some fun to be had here. And I think that's what's important here, is you're having fun while you're watching. All right, that's it for me for now. Again, I don't think that the show is bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think it needs a hell of a lot of tune-up and a hell of a lot of work, but I think there is real potential here. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 if you want to get points involved. Guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to my little diatribe here where I just kind of yell at my camera for a few minutes and worry my next door neighbors. What were your thoughts on Skull Island? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Thumbs up, you know the drill. I have plenty of kaiju goodness here on the channel and more to come, so be sure to subscribe. And until the next one, guys, be sure to take care of yourselves out there and have a good one.